Hello everyone. If you watched our first video lesson, you might feel like I've left something out. Here we are, looking into a book called Built on the Rock, and we haven't even taken a look at Jesus' parable of the man who built on the sand and the one who built on the rock. Well, we wait no longer. Let's give this parable a look. It goes like this. There were two men who built houses. One who built his house on the sand, and another who dug down and found the bedrock and built his house on the rock. Storms came for both houses. The house built on the sand fell down. The house built on the rock stood firm. Now, in many of Jesus' parables, we are left to ourselves to figure out what all the symbols mean. Jesus helps us out with this one. He told us that when we hear Jesus' words and we don't act on them, it's like the man who built his house on the sand. But when we hear Jesus' words and we do them, we're like the one who built his house on the rock. Simple, right? Yes. And no. Notice how both the one who built his house on the sand and the one who built his house on the rock both heard the words of Jesus. This presents us with a difficulty. We might think at first that this parable was actually about the unbelievers and the believers. The unbelievers obviously build their lives on the sand, and the good Christians build our lives on the rock. Here's the problem with that. How many unbelievers do you know who are listening to Jesus? Not many. That means Jesus was really talking to the church. He's saying that within the church, some hear his word and still build on the sand, while others hear his word and build on the rock. This is exactly what Ted Kober saw as he sought to make peace in these troubled churches. Yes, the people faithfully came to worship, and Jesus was preached from the pulpit. But when the storms came, it revealed a stark reality. Even though these people all heard Jesus, they hadn't all built on Jesus. Instead, they built on something else. When the storm came, the foundation was shaken, and the house came crumbling down. Now, what could we build on instead of Jesus? Well, a lot of not so good things, right? But Ted had some interesting observations based on his experience. He found churches who had a lot of good things going on, things that you would want all the churches to have. The only problem was the church had built their ministry on those good things. As good as they were, none were solid enough to be the church's foundation. Let me give you some examples. Our church says our mission statement at the end of every worship service. It's a great mission statement, but it's not our foundation. The mission statement is only there to remind us of our foundation, who is Jesus. People like to gather around a bold, visionary leader. As a senior pastor, I do hope I fit that bill every once in a while. But please, don't build the church on me. I'm a poor, miserable sinner, and if I'm your foundation, I will fail you when the storms of life come. Some churches use inspiring worship to be their foundation. Now, I don't exactly want our worship to be dull and boring, but if our whole church is built on an experience that happens for 1 hour a week, then we miss how Jesus commands total surrender of our lives to him. Today, we're going to discuss how important it is for us to place Jesus and his teachings as the foundation of our lives and our church. Now, before we get started, I want to say this. Not one of us has built our lives on the rock perfectly. God knows I haven't. So it's okay to talk about the parts of your life that lie crumbled in the sand. None of us have built on the rock without first having our fair share of failed construction projects. So don't be afraid to share your struggle. And if you found that rock, if you know that security, don't be afraid to share that either. I pray God's blessings for you as you talk over what it means to build your lives on the rock of Jesus and his word.